Good afternoon. My name's Rich Buckley. I'm a technical troublemaker within our central government, government and justice business unit within CGI UK. David?
I'm David Bolokan, a UCD consultant on the grad scheme in the government and justice business unit.
Cool. We've been doing some work along with Kate sat over there in the space of vibe coding and how it affects what we're doing in this space. And we've been doing this since sort of late last year, and this conference came along and we submitted a proposition for a paper for this, and we got the speaking slot. So it's been great because it's focused a bit of our attention. So we're going to talk about this from a UCD perspective, which David's going to take, and I'm going to look at it from an engineering perspective. I've been a software engineer all my life, 40 years of coding behind me. It's been really interesting. I'm really excited. Right, David.
So vibe coding is a trendy term, but it does not imply quality and trust. In government services, quality and trust is based on evidence. So what is the evidence? Research user needs, accessibility, governance, and usability testing. So what is good doesn't mean it works well with users.
So for me, vibe coding is a bit of a hacky term. I think of just creating something quick and almost quick and dirty, and then throwaway stuff. For me, production software, quality software has to be opinionated. We've talked about it today throughout the conference, guardrails and quality and engineering principles that go behind that. This is really important for me. So for me, opinionated technology choices are needed to make vibe coding actually something useful. So we're going to crack on a little bit. Right, GDS. Very, very quick show of hands. Who's come across GDS? Yeah, most people have seen. So GDS-style websites, government websites. The good thing about GDS is it's open source. The material's there. The large language models have been trained on it. We know that because we can ask questions to the large language models. We can say, generate me a GDS-style website that does this function, and it goes and does it. That's brilliant. So that design system is in those models. That provides some brilliant guardrails for actually doing some creativity. So David's just going to take us through the anatomy of some of these pages.
So GDS has a immediate view of how web user interface should look like. So GDS should follow service manual, service standards, and design system. So on the far left, you can see design system, just like Rich said, it's open source, so the LLM can extract data. And the best thing about the design system, it's thousands of hours of research and usability testing. That makes it really robust. So yeah, there's components, styles, pattern libraries, grid layouts. So the AI agent can extract that within the IDE, let's say Copilot. And then you can create prototypes with just a few prompts. In the middle, you can see predictable page templates. This is just one example, but there's tons in the design system. And there's also within the design system, so you can just access that within an IDE, let's say a Visual Studio Code, AI agents such as Copilot. And that follows a standard consistent pattern, which is question, hint, input, and primary action button. And that's consistent, so there's not really much of a change in that. For government services, it's really essential that it's simplistic and minimalistic, so we don't want it to be too much of a cognitive overload to our users. On the far right, you can see standardized error handling messages, and this is standardized through the design system, so there's not much change, it's exactly the same. So shared standards, reusable patterns, and that will make consistency and fast delivery now be ideal for coding agents. And that follows just an error summary, input fields, and then error messages in that. Exactly the same as predictable page templates, very consistent, so the AI agent can pick it up. So the design system exists because of the service manual and the service standards. If you didn't have the service manual and service standards, it will most likely be a style guide. So the Gov.uk workflow. So governance throughout the whole process, discovery to live services. So the foundation is based on research user needs. So we're trying to learn and understand our user needs. And the outputs on this could be personas and feature mapping, conduct some user interviews, any qualitative or quantitative study, user journeys, and we're trying to find the as-is, right? And then it comes to alpha, and this is ideation. So how might we questions rapid generation? So that's going to help us when it comes to feature building, understanding what kind of features we want to implement into our prototypes. And then comes prototyping. So that is lo-fi, that's sketching, then mid-fi, hi-fi, and then comes to usability testing. That's either guerrilla, formative, or summative methods. And then I'll pass it over to you, Rich.
Cool. So on the normal build flow there, you've got some engineering work to go on. So choosing your framework that you're going to build on, what your language choices are, how you're going to do testing, how you're going to do CI/CD, how are you going to deploy this into what environment. A lot of that is scaffolding that needs to be put in place before you start actually working on features. So there's a lot of, if we take a greenfield example, there's a lot of engineering that needs to happen just to get to starting point of, okay, we can implement our first feature. That's not to be underestimated. That's a decent amount of work. What we're going to do now is look at how this process may change or not with the use of AI tools.
So the Governed UK workflow with AI. Governance throughout the whole process, discovery to live services, but it's essential that humans lead the discovery phase. So why I'm saying that, when it comes to, let's say, qualitative study, user interviews, the AI won't pick up on body languages, nuances, or any vulnerabilities from the user. So your results will be kind of skewed, and it won't be following correct formats, and you won't get the kind of insights you need. But what AI can help is just clustering your insights into themes, codes, generating affinity mapping. When it comes to ideation, you can use AI to just accelerate your feature building, understanding your features much quicker. And then when it comes to prototyping, it's essential to use sketching, human-led first, and then use that as the foundation for mid-fis and hi-fis to accelerate that more of a lengthy process than doing it manually. When it comes to usability testing, so you can use AI to interrogate the flow, so missing states, validation, error messages, but manual testing, human-led is really important here. Pass it over to it.
Cool. So I talked about scaffolding in the previous slide, and you might have noticed that the process here hasn't changed. So our thesis is use these tools, but use them within the process. Don't change the process. But you can accelerate bits within that process. So here for building scaffolding, the agentic AI tools can actually be a huge accelerant. So where you've got strong guardrails, strong opinions, you can actually put them in place and use them to deliver quite an effective stack. And using these tools also allows it to be built in a consistent manner. You're less likely to have defects introduced because you just made a silly mistake. It's more likely to get that right, and more likely to have lower security vulnerabilities and that sort of thing. So we're going to talk about a couple of experiments now that we did. So this is one experiment that I did using OpenAI Codex, which we've got licenses to as CGI partners. Excuse me. So I did a very simple web form to display a person record. I wanted this person record to be searchable, to be viewable, to view the contents of that record, to allow it to be edited, etc. So I started off, and my opinions were that I wanted a strong tech stack of a Next.js web application. So I said, build me this thing in a GDS style using Next.js, and it did it. I then said, I want some APIs behind that to actually allow me to do some persistence, and I wanted to mock the data in those APIs. So I said, I'm going to use Java Spring Boot as the framework for those APIs. I want open API specifications to govern those APIs so that they're all nice and rigorously defined, and it did it. I then said, I want that to be persisted. I want to persist in a database, and I want to use Postgres for that, and I want Liquidbase to be the technology choice for storing that data in, so to managing the schema for that database. And it did it. And then I said I want a Docker Compose set up for allowing this to be deployed to a local environment. And it did that as well. And I was quite impressed with what it did. And that was about 2 hours work. And that included getting around some corporate shenanigans on our Zscaler implementation, because things inside Dockers didn't like using that, so you had to get around that. So that was 2 hours. But that was 2 hours with 40 years of experience of software engineering behind it. Then we did an interesting experiment. So I showed this to David, and he goes, that's pretty cool. And I said, I want to add a notes field to our person record here. I want to be able to record some notes against this and display those and edit them and stuff. So David, using Mural, I think it was Mural, wasn't
Yes,
it?
Mural.
Yeah. You drew that, and actually, just as an artist, actually drew what those would look like. And you can see at the bottom there, notes, no notes yet, add and view notes. He drew that, and he drew what the page would look like when you clicked on that. I took 2 screenshots of that, and I put it into a directory, and I said to Codex, I've got 2 examples here of how this might look in the user interface. Please update me the database model, update the APIs, update the specification, and the user interface to support that. And it went away, and about 15 minutes later, it had done that end-to-end. Now, I was pretty blown away by that. I thought that was pretty damn cool. I'm not saying this is the answer to all the problems that we have, by the way, but it's certainly something worth thinking about, isn't it? Yeah? If you can do that, you can take an image and actually generate an application from that image. That is pretty damn powerful. Yeah? So that was me and about 2 hours of work.
So my experiment, so I ran a UC discovery on vibe coding. So I used Magic Patterns, Lovable, Copilot, ChatGPT on a gov.uk framework. And I realized that there were issues when it comes to constraints. Same thing that Ryan mentioned in the earlier presentation. So there's vagueness and there's corruption. And that was exactly the same thing I realized when I did a UCD community session. Half of our partners managed to get an output because their prompts were following the user needs, user journeys, gov.uk tight constraints. You won't get 100% output using these tools, but you most likely get, let's say, 80% there. And then I built a gov.uk style claim journey plus an admin area using GitHub Copilot. So I managed to do that with fewer manual inputs. And the best thing about the government.uk prototyping kit is that, well, right now you need some sort of coding knowledge. So let's say you need about 10%. But with the use of AI, that can be reduced now to 5%. And the only thing you need to know is how to open up the prototyping kit, how install the IDE, and just install the GitHub Copilot AI agent, and then you can start prompting, and that's about it. And you can get like a flow in a few prompts, gov-styled. Because you're extracting data from the design system, that's one way. And then you're extracting data because of the templates on the prototyping kit, and you get best of both worlds. Then I added the database. So now I can store and retrieve data, and it makes it persistent. And then my head of design, Kate, she checked. So I checked it against WCAG 2.2 single and double A standards, and it found certain issues, and I just told it to fix it, and added all those fixes and changes, and that took around about 2 prompts. And then unexpectedly, it even added ARIA tags in, so now it's compliant with screen readers. But it's essential here, yes, you can use AI, but manual testing is really important. So the human verification aspect here is essential. And this took about 4 hours of initial work and 10 prompts to reach a stable prototyping. So what are the benefits? So faster learning, but not just fast outputs. So AI agents can help teams move from concept to work and prototype much faster. And it will shorten the feedback loop so teams can focus more on user needs and test earlier as well to get more feedback and evidence.
So from an engineering perspective, the AI tooling can just accelerate the mundane, the building blocks of the application. There's an expression of AI being a force multiplier. Taken in software engineering, that means that a senior software engineer, a good software engineer, can be amplified to produce lots and lots of good code. But equally, a poor software engineer can be amplified to make lots and lots of less quality code, shall I say. So be careful. Guardrails are important for that.
So low barrier to prototyping. So more UCD roles can now create code-based testable prototypes. Back to what I said earlier. Yeah, prototyping, you need some sort of code knowledge. But now, we just need to know how to prompt and just open up the IDE and get up Copilot, and you can start prompting. And this will enable richer and more realistic prototypes early in discovery and alpha, and saves so much time. So what are the concerns? Skipping discovery, like I said previously, and when it comes to qualitative studies, it's essential that user interviews are still human-led. You won't pick up on various nuances, like I said previously. And then when it comes to usability testing, manual testing here is really important. So it has to be human-led, but you can still use AI when it comes to clustering data and putting it into an affinity map. And then when it comes to prototyping, sketching is essential human-led first, and then you can use that as a basis to accelerate your mid-rise and high-rise, which are the more lengthy process. So prototyping drift. So it's essential to use some sort of guidance or playbook to help you to prototype, so following that user needs, user actions, user journeys, and tight gov constraints to make sure it aligns closely to the gov format. And then mistakes are something that looks real. So what looks done doesn't necessarily mean it will work for users.
I love the presentation first thing this morning from DVLA and the concerns and the assignments. That's where I am at the moment. I'm really, really, really excited by this cool stuff, but I'm also absolutely petrified by the environmental impact, the impact of global costs of components and stuff like that. I think in terms of this particular remit, a few things I'm going to just pull out very quickly because we are running low on time. Decision overload is something that I'm quite concerned about, the cognitive overload of if you're prompting things to get done, the solutions come through so damn quick that you're there going, okay, well, what's next, and what's next, and what's next? Whereas as software engineers, we've evolved to have a bit of time, which is the typing in between the ideas. So the idea comes along, you type it, you think about it, you test it. Now it's going bang, 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 bang. So I think we need to look after ourselves in this and make sure that we don't get that cognitive overload. And the point on there about skills erosion, I'm a big fan of engineers understanding the code that they're committing, understanding how it works and how it's written and all the aspects of it, because they're responsible for committing that code. How do we make sure that the young engineers joining us now have that capability to do that if all they know is prompting? Yeah.
So what are the guardrails? Non-negotiables for UCD are user needs, content standards, accessibility, and usability testing. So done means validated with users, not just generated.
Cool. For me, guardrails, guardrails, guardrails. We've heard that throughout the conference today. Have your opinions about what technology, know what good looks like, write that down, use that in the models to actually constrain them. We've seen on some of the other demonstrations today how if you don't constrain the models, they just go off and hallucinate and make stuff up. Tightly constrain things. Yep.
So what are the key takeaways? AI can speed up prototyping, but it must not replace user needs. User needs is the forefront to everything in UCD. Accessibility and user testing are non-negotiables. Yes, you can use AI when it comes to clustering data, but manual testing is important here. Teams much was for drift and skill erosion. So anyone can use AI, but if you don't understand the aspect of design thinking, you start missing user needs, and you won't be solving your problem. And then the foundation need for AI to work reliably. Just like I said previously, having the design system, having the prototyping kit just makes the AI more suitable when it comes to outputs. It more aligns to Gov.
So for me, the future's bright for engineering. You're still going to need people who understand how to make things secure, scalable, deployable, maintainable, all the rest of it. Have some opinions on what that looks like, know what good looks like, and implement those in guardrails. Thank you very much for listening. I think we're just about running out of time.
Thank you.